Republican senators increasingly pushing back against the White House's proposed nearly $2 trillion stimulus bill. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, however, says that only about 9% of the money is in the healthcare space, and less than 1% of it deals with vaccination efforts. Georgia Congressman Drew Ferguson voted against the bill in the House, and he joins us now here on National Report. Congressman, great to see you.
Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Okay, let's get right into it. But first, I want to play you what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is saying about the bill so we can bring everyone up to speed. Here's that.
The new administration made a conscious decision to jam us, to do it one party only, to take advantage of the reconciliation process to try to achieve a whole lot of other items completely unrelated to COVID-19. So we'll be fighting this in every way that we can.
So essentially, McConnell there is arguing that the bill includes spending for projects that have nothing to do with coronavirus or coronavirus-related relief. But Americans, as we know, they do need some form of relief right now. Congressman, is there a compromise that Republicans in the Senate really could propose that offers a solution for desperate Americans right now?
Look, we all agree that we need to continue to focus on getting vaccines not only produced, but getting them out to Americans. The distribution part of this is very, very important. We need to make sure that Americans are getting back to work safely. And most importantly, we need to recognize that our kids have got to be back in school. That is something that every single American wants, and we are willing to go just like we did in the previous packages, to work on targeted relief for American families, American children, and American business. But what's unacceptable is to have a hyper-partisan bill that only spends such a small fraction of this on the actual needs of the American people, and most of it are priorities for Democratic leadership. That's not right. That's not fair. We're willing to go to the table to work for the American people. The Democrats have proven that they're more interested in themselves and not their constituents.
I hear you making the argument here, but for, again, an American looking in, waiting for Congress, who they see keeps receiving their paycheck and they're being told by their governors to stay closed, and you can make the argument that that's the wrong decision there. Is there something that Republicans can do right now so, again, this doesn't look like they're the ones holding back the $1,400 checks?
Yeah, we tried this when the bill went through committee. We tried to offer amendments to make the bill better. I think we offered 229 amendments, common sense amendments. I offered one in the Ways and Means Committee that addressed the discrepancy between seniors in rural areas getting the vaccine versus those in suburban areas. We offered amendments to take funding away from pet projects to put them towards mental health support that our children so desperately need. So, yes, we tried to work with them as it went through our committees, but quite candidly, they did not take any of our amendments. This was hyper-partisan. So we've already offered that, and it's been rejected in the House. And I think the American people, when they see what's in this bill and they see how unfair it is, they are going to reject it.
Well, that's not the only controversial bill that recently passed in the House. Let's talk about the election bill. We want to show our viewers some of the sweeping changes that are being proposed here. It expands voter registration and access, limits removal of voters from rolls, moves redistricting to commissions, tightens campaign funding disclosures, and mandates candidates file tax return. Congressman, your thoughts on this bill and its progression through the House and, of course, its possibility of passing through the Senate?
This is a horrible bill for America. It really, at its core, it's unconstitutional, and it does things that make our voting systems less secure. Look, the Constitution clearly says that states should be in charge of writing their own election laws, and this is federalizing elections. There's a 6-to-1 match. 6-to-1 match of taxpayer dollars to go into congressional campaigns. So I want you to think about voters in Georgia funding a campaign of someone like AOC in New York. I want you to think about someone, if you're a Democrat, funding the campaign of someone on the Republican side of the aisle using your tax dollars. That's not right. Listen, what's wrong with having to prove who you are to vote? We think having voter ID is important. There are many issues associated with the absentee ballots and the mail-in ballots. Those things are not right. We need more transparency. We should stop having the false choice between ballot access and ballot integrity. We should demand both, and we can achieve both.
Clearly, there were concerns surrounding the 2020 election. So is election, integrity and focusing on election security a top priority of yours? And should that be a top priority for GOP candidates as we head towards 2022?
Look, I am in full support, at least in my home state of Georgia, what our legislature and our governor are doing right now to fix the problems with voter integrity in the state of Georgia. Again, the federal government should not be involved in this. What we should be doing is supporting our state legislatures as they do things to make sure that our ballots are safe, that there's integrity in the process, and that people have access to the ballots. We can do both, and it should be done in the states, and we're going to continue to focus on that. We want to make sure that every legal vote is counted and illegal votes are not counted.
Finally, for you, Congressman, Capitol Hill is essentially under another sort of lockdown today. This comes after some reported threats potentially for when it deals with security. What were you told about this threat level? Are you concerned that there could be some sort of protest that turns violent today?
No, I am unaware of any credible threat. I have not been briefed on any credible threat. Let me remind you that there are miles and miles and miles of fencing, not only directly around the Capitol, but the outer perimeter as well. We're spending millions of dollars a day to have the National Guard here. The security presence is very robust, and I believe, quite candidly, that most of this is about the optics of what Pelosi is trying to say about Republican voters. It's not fair. It's not right. The United States Senate is in session today. They are exposing what's going on in a really bad partisan relief bill in the Senate that seems to be getting worse by the hour. And they are working. The rest of D.C. is working. Pelosi just decided that we weren't going to work today. Par for the course for her.
That is Congressman Drew Ferguson of the great state of Georgia joining us live on the program. Congressman, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Some disturbing reports about the food being served to the troops protecting the U.S. Capitol. Outrage growing after whistleblowers reported soldiers providing Capitol security got sick after being fed undercooked, unsanitary, and inadequate meals. Joining us now to discuss is General Michael McGuire, Board Chairman of National Guard Association of the United States. Good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. You know, first, we've seen the National Guard sleeping in parking garages at the beginning of this whole thing at the Capitol. Now we're being shown from a whistleblower they've been served moldy food that's getting them sick on top of other issues with the food. What is happening? What have you heard? And how much credibility is there with this as I read these reports again from a Michigan National Guard?
Yeah, good morning, Sean, and thank you for having me. First, I have been able to talk to some of my colleagues, adjutants general from other states. And as the chairman of the association, I am extraordinarily disappointed and disturbed at the images you've showed. This is not how we treat our service members while they're called to serve. But I would add that I am continuing to say that this is a highly inappropriate use of our National Guardsmen for this period of time, at very best and at very worst, an unconstitutional or illegal act that we've got them still there without proper authorization.
So does this come down, in your experience, does this come down to the food distributor? Where do you follow the chain of this when you're trying to solve the problem as we look of undercooked meat that we're giving to these men and women?
Well, I think the specifics of the incident have to be worked out at the local level, but I think this is a symptom of a bigger problem. The bigger problem is that after the very unfortunate events of the 6th of January, there was a call for the National Guard to ramp up to 26,000 members, literally 1 week later by the 15th to have them moving. That's 2 corps worth of soldiers. And if you don't have proper time to plan and coordinate these kind of movements, setting aside the legality of it, the logistics and sustainment is going to be problematic. And we're seeing those types of things happen in D.C. right now.
Well, let's move to that topic there. Do you feel, and I think you kind of touched on this, but do you feel that their presence is warranted? There's talk of this potential concerning intel that there would be an issue today, March 4th, there at the Capitol. We still have thousands of troops there, potentially moving past March. Is it warranted to keep them there?
Well, I think it's important to remember here in Arizona, I was the only adjutant general that said that I refused to comply with what I felt to be an illegal order to move up to 6% of the Arizona National Guard to support the activity in direct support of law enforcement. My response to the threat assessment is I've seen no credible threat for why they should be there. But more importantly, we have over 300 years in this country of rebuffing the idea of having military members patrol the streets and do direct law enforcement. The proper way to have handled this was to ask for mutual aid from surrounding counties, our great first responders and police in the local jurisdictions, the county, state, and federal level, and let them handle this problem.
All right, we'll leave it right there. General Michael McGuire joining us live today. General, good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sean. You have a great morning. Thank you.
Same to you. Absolutely. With both Texas and Mississippi opening up their states, President Biden had this to say about those decisions.
These masks make a difference. We are on the cusp of being able to fundamentally change the nature of this disease because of the way in which we're able to get vaccines in people's arms. We've been able to move that all the way up to the end of May to have enough for every American, to get every adult American to get a shot. And the last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime, everything's fine, take off your mask, forget it. It still matters.
Yeah, he went on to call it a big mistake while speaking in the Oval Office on Wednesday during a meeting with lawmakers who wore a mask. He said, quote, "I hope everyone has realized by now that these masks make a difference." Joining us to discuss, our panelist, media relations expert and Newsmax contributor Allison Maloney. She's founder of Allison May PR, and also joined by political analyst Mark Halperin. Neanderthals, that was the word that President Biden decided to call the governors of both Texas and Mississippi. Allison, your thoughts on this decision to call out these individuals when they're just allowing their states to head back to normal, I guess we could say.
Yeah, I wonder where the unity is. He said that he wouldn't call political folks enemies, yet he's using the word Neanderthals. And the reality, Emma, is these governors are opening their states and they're doing what science is telling them and what they believe is best for their states. And I think the message here is they're not saying don't wear masks. They're lifting the mask mandate, and that's allowing people to not get in trouble if they don't wear a mask. And so, we continue to hear about this divide. And when you call out governors and call them those types of names, that's going to continue to divide the country.
Mark Halperin, your thoughts on that, the pushback at the term Neanderthals being used here, and Texas, Mississippi saying, look, we're going to go ahead and open up. But you can almost see how it pushes back on the White House's message, the CDC's message versus a couple of states, their message. They're completely different.
Sean, I've spent a lot of time in Texas and Mississippi, and maybe I've not been spending that time with the right folks, but I've never found anyone there who liked to be called a Neanderthal. Maybe there are some, but I mean, I think that's what Joe Biden actually thinks. I think he doesn't have a lot of respect for people who disagree with him on almost anything. And in this case, if he wants a better working relationship with the states, even those states run by red governors, Republican governors, I'm not sure what he gets out of using what language like that. Well, I suspect it sets him back.
Yeah, well, this nicknaming, though, it's not the first time that Republicans have been, called a certain name. Deplorables comes to mind. Allison, is this Joe Biden sort of deplorable moment?
Yeah, I think it is, Emma. We all know when Hillary Clinton called Republicans deplorables. And so this is his moment, and it's all over the media. Of course, it's not over, the left media. They're not really talking about that. But yeah, I mean, this is insulting, right? It's insulting, as Mark said, to governors. It's insulting to Republicans and to people who live in those states.
Yeah, well, and also people that just want to simply be responsible for themselves, something that we all have done, because they would fall under that category. Meanwhile, at the borders, they are letting migrants in with COVID-19. In fact, 108 illegal immigrants in Texas tested positive for COVID were reported released. I want to play you this. This is White House Press Secretary on this very topic. Watch.
Our guidance, regardless of status, is testing positive for COVID-19 or experiencing COVID-like symptoms is to isolate, continue to social distance, wear a mask, and seek medical attention if needed. But as a part of our process, individuals who are adjudicated are tested for COVID-19 in partnership with state and local authorities.
Okay, there's the response from the White House, Mark Halperin, but where are they going to self-isolate if they just came across the border?
Sean, it's a third straight week where I think the biggest story in America, besides kids not being in school and the pandemic, is what the Biden administration is doing on immigration. They are liberalizing immigration policies, proposing more liberal policies, and expecting there to not be any change in what happens on the facts on the ground at the border. This is one example of something they're doing where a lot of Americans look and say they're putting the rights of people who come to the country illegally on par with the rights of the people who are here now, and in some cases, elevating those rights. And I think this is not going to end well if they continue on the course they're on.
Well, you have to show a negative COVID test if you want to travel legally in the United States. Where is just that same standard for everyone? That question remains. And perhaps, Allison, that would be a question posed to President Biden himself. However, he hasn't hosted a solo press briefing that's kind of been unscripted and available in the briefing room so far. Does that seem unusual to you? Would you like to see him address and answer questions from reporters?
Absolutely. President Trump had a press conference within, I think it was the first 28 days. President Obama, all of these presidents have had press conferences, and President Biden has not. And, you know, he did have that Q&A in the beginning where they took some questions from reporters, but the media needs to be able to ask him questions, and the public needs to be able to hear him answer those questions. It's great they're having these White House press briefings, but, you know, she's circling back and dodging questions. We need to hear from the president himself.
On CNN yesterday, Dr. Fauci responded to a question on Florida having a lower coronavirus death rate than states that had far stricter restrictions. Listen to this.
Are there some things when you look at Florida that you think that he did get right?
Well, you know, Erin, we had often talks on a weekly basis during the last administration with the mayors of Miami and of Dade County. And, you know, some of the things that were done down there by people at the local level really actually did work. I mean, they were very careful. They tried really very hard.
So, Mark, there's Fauci saying that Florida did some things right. Florida ranks 27th in the country per capita deaths, and despite fewer mask mandates, lockdowns, and closures. But I think where, if you actually pay attention to his words, he's actually giving credit to the counties like Miami-Dade and others that still have limited lockdowns.
Sean, this has always been a moving target. You know, we all look for the best data we can get week to week, month to month about what's working and what's not. But it's pretty clear right now that masking, social distancing are effective, but that states that had looser lockdown policies regarding schools, regarding restaurants, regarding all public activity, in some cases do better than states that have had lots of restrictions and in general don't do much worse. So I think as we go back and look at which states handled it the best, Florida may well end up as towards the top because they balanced protecting the vulnerable with allowing other people to go about their business.
Right.
Also prioritizing those elderly residents, 65 and plus, for vaccinations, which, you know, we've kind of known from the beginning that the elderly are truly the most at risk. So kudos to Governor DeSantis on that decision, no doubt.
All right, Allison Maloney, Mark Halperin, stick around, more to cover.
We're talking about this. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on the record. Yesterday, he spoke out for the first time about the sexual harassment allegations made against him. We'll play you what he had to say right after this.
I now understand that I acted in a way that made people feel uncomfortable. It was unintentional, and I truly and deeply apologize for it.
Well, despite offering an apology of sort, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said Wednesday that he won't resign from office amid growing calls for him to step down over sexual harassment allegations.
Yeah, this is after a third woman came forward alleging inappropriate conduct. The governor said he felt, quote, embarrassed for the pain I've caused and pledged to cooperate in an investigation led by the state attorney general. Our panelists are back now. Allison Maloney, Mark Halperin. I want to play this for you, and then we'll get your response here, Allison. He claims he never touched anyone. Here's sound from that.
I never touched anyone inappropriately. I never touched anyone inappropriately. I never knew at the time that I was making anyone feel uncomfortable.
And of course, this after various photos were sent out that everyone has seen of him, kissing or going in for a kiss, doing hand gestures like that. Allison, your response to hearing the governor finally come out and address this issue?
Well, I don't think he knows what inappropriate is, obviously, with pictures and the allegations. But he was quiet, Sean, for a while. And so I think silence speaks volumes. And in the world of PR, you need to address the situation head on. I know his attorneys were saying, don't talk to the media, be quiet. And that's what attorneys' job is to do. But also, you need to address the public. And when you're quiet, it shows that you're hiding something or you're scared.
Well, he also at one point said that kissing is his customary way of greeting people. Watch this.
You can go find hundreds of pictures of me kissing people, men, women. It is my usual and customary way of greeting.
Mark Halperin, perhaps as governor of New York and holding such a high elected official position, he might want to rethink his traditional way of greeting people?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's one part of this. But Charlotte Bennett's account, which almost everyone I know who's read it finds it to be quite compelling. Her account and how her case was handled, she's the second accuser. She's the one who worked directly for Governor Cuomo. I think that's the one, and there's lots of discussion of more people coming forward. But her account is one that I don't think he adequately addressed yesterday. The reporters, in their limited questions, didn't really get to the heart of how he's treating her accusations, how his office handled her story when she came forward and reported it. So she's a very brave person to come forward. And I think Governor Cuomo is not done in having to respond to that. And of course, there's a nursing home issue, which we shouldn't put aside because he's being investigated on multiple fronts. He's vulnerable politically on multiple fronts. And I think he's personally vulnerable on both of these issues as well.
I keep bringing the exact same thing up. I'm like, let's not forget what happened with the nursing homes. This is getting so much attention. I feel like it's 90% of this and 10% of deaths in nursing homes based on an executive order that was signed by the governor of New York. But nevertheless, addressing what you said, Mark, Cuomo also said the public needs to wait for the facts. Here's that.
Wait for the facts from the Attorney General's report before forming an opinion. Get the facts, please, before forming an opinion. And the Attorney General is doing that review. I will fully cooperate with it, and then you will have the facts.
Allison, from a PR standpoint, is that something you would tell your client to do? Because he's not really coming forth with a lot. You're not really getting a lot from him. He's just saying, wait for the investigation to unfold. Hold off on your opinions. How do you think that was handled?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure his attorneys are saying that. But what's interesting to me, Sean, because he talks about facts, we saw how he came after Justice Kavanaugh. He didn't wait for facts. He formed opinions, and he formed opinions about a lot of Republicans in a lot of situations. So, I'm sure that was they tried to spin it in that way for him to avoid answering questions. I just don't think it was the right approach.
Really quick for our audience, just want to give you a glimpse into how one media publication is covering this story compared to Justice Kavanaugh. Here, it's written by the same author. In fact, for Kavanaugh, it says, fear a Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And when it comes to Andrew Cuomo, maybe it's a good thing Andrew Cuomo is still governor. Mark Halperin, we could talk about the media double standard all day long, but this is a pretty clear example for anyone, right?
The media double standard's pretty strong, Emma, but the Democrat double standard is, I think, a much starker. People like Kirsten Gillibrand and other Democratic politicians, all of whom are now saying, well, let's wait for the investigation. Let's not make any judgment until then. That's not the posture they've had about many Republicans and others in the past. And I think it's going to catch up with them because this is not a consistent standard, and it's not the standard they say they said for a long time is the right one to have.
Yeah, fair point. Mark Halperin and Allison Maloney, thank you for being our panelists. We appreciate your insight. Take care.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.